If you're a health of a life coach who wants to get more leads on your email list, but you're not sure where to start, today on the show we're talking all about what ideas you can use to create lead magnets. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help health and life coaches get more clients, grow their businesses, and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show we're talking all about ideas for lead magnets for health and life coaches. If you're not familiar with what a lead magnet is, lead magnets are often called freebies. I have done an episode of the show on a similar topic around creating an awesome freebie. I will link to that, so do go and check that out. But I wanted to talk about specifically like actual ideas that you can take and use in your business that will help attract people onto your email list, which is essentially what a lead magnet or freebie is. So just for anyone who is new to all of this and is unsure, a lead magnet or a freebie is basically something that you offer to people in exchange for their email address and getting them on your email list. And the situation with freebies and lead magnets has changed quite a lot over the last couple of years. What used to work doesn't work so well anymore, and we need to think really creatively and really specifically about this whole thing if we want to get people on our email list. We want to build our email list for so many different reasons, for being able to build relationships with people who ultimately become clients, for being able to nurture them, for being able to have an audience that is not connected to a platform that you don't control, like Instagram or Facebook. There's like all sorts of reasons why growing an email list is a very, very good idea. In fact, I would say not many things are essential in business, but growing an email list is one of them. So having a really good lead magnet is going to help you do that. And we're going to share some ideas for what that can look like today. Now, as I said before, a lot has changed around what works with lead magnets or freebies compared to in the past. When I first started coaching, you could literally create something and just whack it out there and loads of people would sign up for it and it was fine. These days, not so much. I think people are kind of just a bit done with freebies. Now, that is not to say that like all is lost. I think for the right people, they will sign up for the right things. I think people are more discerning about what it is that they're signing up for. I think people are generally overloaded with information and have come to the conclusion that they might not use the things that they sign up for. So we want to make our lead magnet really, really amazing so that people do sign up for it, something that they are so desperate to get hold of that they will be like, yes, this is amazing, I really need this in my life. But want to be able to do that. You can't just have like a half-assed freebie or lead magnet anymore. It has to be really, really good. You don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that you can't give people really, really good quality stuff for free because you want to be giving away something that is awesome. With that being said, it is worth noting that there is a growing trend, and I talked about this in my 2025 Trends episode of the show, which I will link to, that low ticket offers and mini offers actually serving the same purpose as a lead magnet are growing in popularity. So there's also the option for any of these ideas that we're talking about for you to actually charge for them a low ticket price. Now that might reduce the number of people who are signing up, but it also might increase the likelihood of those people actually converting to become clients further down the line. The kind of, theory goes is that when someone is invested that little bit of money, they're more likely to be wanting to invest in themselves. They're much more committed to solving their problems. They're a different kind of person and they might just be better suited to actually converting into clients further down the line. So that's an option as well. So like I said, we want those lead magnets freebies to be as good as they possibly can be. And I think there's a couple of key things to think about when it comes to designing a lead magnet or freebie that is going to actually attract people onto your email list. I think the first thing is obviously knowing very clearly who your people are, your niche, and the problems that they are facing. That is always the starting point for anything that I do in my business and for when I'm talking with clients. What I'm suggesting to them is really make sure that you understand the problems that they are facing, because ultimately a freebie, if it can solve a specific problem, like a small problem, that can be really helpful. Same with low ticket offers, really, like if it can solve a really specific thing and help people take a specific action, then that is really, really helpful. It needs to be something that people want. That is ultimately really, really important. It needs to be something that people actually want. Now, I'm not going to say that all of my freebies in my business are amazing because they still kind of serve the purposes, but I've tried to really think creatively about what it is that people actually want and what they need to understand and what they want to change, what they need to implement. Really think about that because what we want is we want people to really want it and we want them to use it and actually take action with it. If people download it and do absolutely nothing with it, they're not going to get the full benefits of actually the point of having that freebie. You might get them on your list, but they might just not engage in the same way as they would if they actually use the thing that you give them. And also, when you design a really, really good freebie or lead magnet or low ticket offer, we want to be putting something in there if we can, if it's possible, that leads to that deepening connection with someone, because again, that's going to place them in a much better position to become a client further down the line. So what are some ideas for different things that you could create that would potentially make amazing lead magnets in your health or life coaching business? I'm going to give you some ideas to get started with. These are the things that I tend to see are working well. Now, again, if you want more ideas, something else that you can do is actually look at any content that you've created. If you are regularly creating content in your coaching business, look at what tends to get the biggest response. Like if you're creating stuff on Instagram, what tends to get the most engagement, the most comments, the most likes? If you're creating blog posts, if you're creating podcasts, like what tends to get the most feedback? Think about, out of your content, is there something that people tend to be like responding to most? That could be a really good indicator as well for a topic for a freebie. So now I'm going to give you a full list of different ideas, different formats of things that you could create as lead magnets. Again, the different types of things that you would put into this is really, about your niche and who your people are and the problems that you solve. But I'm going to try and give some examples as well so that you can see how you could use these in your own business. The first thing is a quiz. Now, quizzes have been popular for a couple of years now, and everyone loves a quiz. We like learning things about ourselves, and a quiz, when it's well structured and the outcomes of that quiz are well structured, make sense for your business, they can be absolutely fantastic lead magnets and can really work well in terms of creating systems after they've signed up for your list, in terms of identifying what their needs are, what their primary problems are, what they might respond to the best, what you can sell to them. They're probably one of the more complicated things that you can use as a lead magnet, but again, they can be really, really valuable in terms of getting people to sign up, because people love to learn a bit more about themselves. They are just a little bit more work to put into, and you want to make sure that they're structured really, really well and that you've got the back end systems to make them happen. They're also a little bit more tech heavy. So for example, you could have a quiz that helps people figure out like what their stress type is, or you could have a quiz that helps them identify what foods they might want to include in their diet if they are struggling with perimenopause, for example, and they have those particular symptoms. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can create a quiz. Really think about what you can help people discover about themselves, and think about how you can implement that. But like I say, the downside with the quizzes is they are a little bit more tech involved, and usually they're a little bit more complex to create, but they are still really, really relevant and people love quizzes. The next idea for a lead magnet is some kind of audio thing. And again, this could be all sorts of different things. It could be a single audio, it could be a meditation, it could be, some affirmations, it could be you delivering some information in audio format, it could be a series of audios that you deliver over a period of time, it could be a private podcast feed. Like, this has become really popular, and I think in the right niche, like, this can be amazing. So again, you can use a great bit of tech called Hello Audio. I will put a link in the description for that, where you can create a private podcast feed that people have to sign up for, and you can give them some information, in this private podcast feed that no one else can access unless they sign up. And that can be awesome as well, depending again on your particular people. And a really big thing to think about is, given what you know about your ideal clients, like what are they most likely to engage in? What have they got the time to engage in? What will they want to, get involved in? Like, really think about that as well. But audio can be fantastic. And again, when we're wanting to think about that connection box being ticked, them hearing your voice is a really, really great thing that will build that connection with them. So audio can be fantastic, again, depending on the nature of what it is that you want to help them with. Because again, the key thing with a lead magnet is that we want to help them take some action or learn something or something very specific. So depending on what the format of that needs to be, audio can be a really good option as well. And then there's a workbook. So again, I quite like a good workbook. You want to be really thinking about your ideal client and whether or not they'll sit down and do this. And you also want to think about making it easy for them. One of my pet peeves about workbooks is that they come in PDF format, and if you can't fill them in digitally, I'm not going to sit there and print it out. And I'm not going to sit there and write it out. That's just a pain in the arse. So I'm a real fan personally of fillable workbooks. Either that's a fillable PDF, or it's a workbook that's been created in Google Docs, or in Notion for me. And again, Notion is a little bit more niche, and I think it's a bit more business to business space. However, I have seen lots of fantastic stuff in Notion for the business to consumer space. Like I follow a fantastic girl on YouTube, and she created an amazing Notion template that was about like lifestyle stuff, and I was well into that. So and I will get onto templates actually in a second, but you can create a workbook that is fillable and that is on a different platform. It's not just like a PDF that they have to print out. That can be really, really beneficial as well. And again, like a workbook that's going to take them through a process that is going to lead them to an outcome. Again, it needs to be something that they want. It needs to be something that they want to do. It needs to be something that's actionable. It needs to be something that is going to help them like feel like a shift. Like that's kind of what we want. We want them to use it. We want them to take action. So a workbook can be really great. This can be a workbook where you help them figure out a self-care plan. Like I had a fantastic freebie. One of my most popular freebies ever was the Ultimate Self-Care Kit, and it included a workbook and then a list of 50 self-care ideas. And that was incredibly popular, and it was kind of primarily a workbook format, and that did really, really well when I was a health coach. So just as an example, that's the kind of thing that you could create. So a workbook that guides people through questions, kind of similar thing could be like a journaling workbook as well, depending on your niche again. All sorts of different things that you can come into with that, but that can be really, really fantastic too. The next idea is a planner. This is something that you create that helps people plan something. Very popular version is like a meal planner. I think a meal planner for health coaches is way overdone, and people probably don't need or use them very much. But is there any other form of planner? I mean, a habit tracker, if you do like a really interesting take on it, that can be really interesting as a freebie. Can it be something that maybe people do actually print out this planner and use it, or is it a digital thing, depending on who your audience are? Think about what kind of things it could be. If you're a coach, for example, who helps people who are home educating, perhaps it's a planner to help plan out lessons and activities for your child. Like think about the things that they would really use and really value, and create a planner around that kind of topic. That can be really valuable as well. Again, along a similar lines is you could create some kind of template. Now, I think these are fantastic lead magnets. I really love some kind of template. Again, I mentioned just before when I was talking about the workbook, someone on YouTube who I follow who created this fantastic Notion template, and templates can be brilliant depending again on what kind of thing people might use it for, and what your niche is and who your people are. But some kind of template that they can take and actually use in their life can be amazing. Again, there's some big crossovers there with planners, but for example, you could create a template workout plan. If you're a PT or someone who works around fitness, you create a template that they can like take themselves and use. Kind of similar again, there's lines around how these things kind of interlink with like workbooks and planners and templates, but I think with a template, it's something that people can actually take and like use themselves. It's like that kind of like really specific way of doing things. And I think again, what pops into my mind is things like Notion templates, maybe it's like Canva templates, that kind of thing, depending again on what your niche is. But I do love a good template, and I think that they can work really, really well for health and life coaches, depending on the specific topic that you're kind of involved in a similar way to planners and things like that as well. Next up is a video lesson or a series of video lessons. So this could even be, your lead magnet can even be like a mini course. It really depends on who your people are. I will go back to that again and again. But one of the things that I love about including an element of video in there, and again, if you are doing like the planner, the template, the workbook option, include a little video lesson and how to use it, and then they get to see your face. I think when people get to see your face and hear your voice, we deepen that connection. So think about having like a video lesson, a series of videos, get creative with how you might want to give over that information, but also bear in mind that not everyone is going to sit and watch long videos. Some people will, like I have got, certainly in my business, I've got longer video trainings that people can sit down and watch, almost like an on-demand webinar. That's an option. If you think your people will sit down and watch that, and if you want to give some really detailed information, like a video can be a really, really great way to deliver that. So do think about whether or not that's an option as well. So videos can be a potential option too. Another idea is like an email series. So again, I think these things can work wonderfully well, where basically someone signs up and then it triggers them to get an email every day, perhaps with a little tip that they can implement. Something that I got, and it's always stuck in my head, I think it was probably a couple of years ago, It was Gala Darling, and it was like a money mindset thing. And every day you got a little email, and it was like, today clean out your purse. The next day, like, change your passwords on your bank accounts to something that is like an affirmation. The day after that was like, do this little tapping video. The day after that was do this little thing. And I absolutely loved that. And I thought it was so simple, but so valuable, because I took action on that. It was so bite-sized. I actually took the action on it, and that made a massive difference to how I engaged with that. So an email series can be another great idea. Again, you can incorporate video into that, you can incorporate audio into that. There's lots of different ways that you can approach it. So get creative. Again, think about your ideal people, what they're going to engage with, what is going to help them take action, and make that. Then finally, the good old-fashioned ebook. Now, I think there was a trend for ebooks as freebies, or like basically PDFs with a lot of information not so long ago. One of the issues that I have with this kind of thing is, and I think a really good rule of thumb here is, if your lead magnet or freebie could otherwise be a blog post, or otherwise be an Instagram video, or otherwise be whatever, then it might not be the best option as a lead magnet. And this is why I really like very actionable, tangible things as lead magnets these days, in terms of planners, templates, workbooks, quizzes, and so on. I think people see more value in things that have got that little bit more tangibility to them. I still think there's a place for an ebook, and there could be all sorts of different versions of what that can look like. Sometimes people just want that curated information that's a very specific thing and that's very easy to get hold of. So that's a good option. So if your niche involves something that's quite complex, but you can make that really simple and do that in a very simple format, then that's actually quite valuable, and that could be quite beneficial. So for example, perhaps you're a coach for women who are divorcing or who are separating, and you can give them some legal advice or give them some information in a very curated format. That can be quite valuable as a freebie. There's all sorts of different versions of what that can look like. But again, it's about making sure, like, will people think that this is worth spending the time to put that email address in to get it? Or if it's a low ticket offer version of what this is, actually spending a few dollars or a few pounds to download this. It needs to kind of have like that wantedness. Like, you want people to like want it. It's like, oh, I like the sound of that, I'm going to get that. Like, you want it to have that. And these days that is a bit more challenging than it used to be, which is why hopefully these ideas have given you some fresh things to think about. So hopefully that has given you lots of ideas. There's probably way more things I could put into that, but I think most things will fall into one of those categories. Think creatively, add connection, and help them create action. I think those are the key things that you want to be thinking about. We want them to take action. We want it to be a small, specific enough thing that they really want it. If we can include a way to put in some connection in there, like a video or audio element, that is amazing. That's really, really helpful too. So think about those things, and don't be afraid to experiment. Like, again, I'm not sat here saying that all of my lead magnets are perfect in my business. You can go and check them out on my everything page. I will put a link. I've got various different lead magnets in my business. Like, experiment, and you don't have to have a single lead magnet either. You can have multiple lead magnets too. My main lead magnet at the moment that I'm talking a lot about is the profitable business model for coaches, kind of mini training, and the business plan template. Do go and check that out as well if you want to see an example of how this looks. But again, I'm business to business, not business to consumer. At some point, I might actually pull out all of my lead magnets that I did as a health coach, but I know that the key one that I did was the Ultimate Self-Care Kit, which was really, really successful. And like I said, I think it probably would still be relevant these days, but I think, again, it had its time and it was really popular back when I launched it and offered it. But I think people need that like tangibility, and planners, workbooks, quizzes, templates, those things tend to do really, really well at the moment. So I hope that has given you loads of stuff to think about. Please do let me know, what out of these ideas will you create as your lead magnet? Let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Pop me a DM on Instagram if you are listening on the podcast. I am at Wholehearted Laura. Let me know if this has been helpful, if this has sparked any ideas for you. If you get stuck, give me a shout. I'm more than happy to help brainstorm. One of the things that I have noticed about myself, one of my superpowers, is that I am really, really good at thinking of amazing lead magnet ideas for everyone else than me. I'm really, really good at it for other people. So I'm more than happy, like, pop me a DM on Instagram. I will voice note with you, for a couple of minutes if you need a quick idea for a lead magnet. Like, I am more than happy to do that. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. Let me know how you get on with this one, and I will see you next week, guys. Take care. Bye.